was the last time you felt truly connected? Not just a quick text or like on social media or small talk at the grocery store, but a meaningful connection. Sometimes we're just looking for those connections so hard that we're just trying to fit in. And oh boy, trying to fit in is exhausting. It can leave us feeling disconnected and also feeling very lonely at times. Yep, that is what we're chatting about in video number 3 in this 3-part series. If you've been feeling a little disconnected, you are not alone. In a world that seems to be increasingly divided and disconnected, it is tougher than ever to make meaningful connections with people. And some of the things that we're dealing with is some of those connections that we've had with people and valued seem to be having lots of tension put into them because of maybe different beliefs on different issues. And so connection is getting tougher, but I also think it is more important than ever and it is worth the effort. I am an introvert at heart. I find the world sometimes very people-y. It takes a lot of energy for me to be constantly connecting with people. But don't worry, you don't have to be constantly connecting with people. One or two meaningful connections is what keeps us healthy. That's it. So stick with me. This one might just change how you see everything. Okay, hang on to your boots. If you think talking about and learning about connection and relationships and loneliness is some fluffy little topic, think again. The research that has been done on this topic is mind blowing, really. And researchers and experts have been saying for quite some time now, even before the pandemic, that we are in a loneliness epidemic and it is seriously affecting our health. In a nutshell, loneliness impacts our mental health, our physical health, our biological health in very serious ways. And there's so many studies that have been done with this. And in Brene Brown's book, she references a meta-analysis study, which is really a study of studies that looked at all the different studies that have been done and some of the common things that have been found in it. And listen to this comparison just to give you some perspective of how serious of an issue this is. So, living with air pollution increases your odds of dying early by 5%. Living with obesity increases your odds of dying early by 20%. Excessive drinking increases your odds of dying early by 30%. Living with loneliness increases our odds of dying early by 45%. These are not just little suggestions or hypotheses. This is what the studies have shown. This is how significant it is. Other studies go on to show loneliness is associated with a greater risk of cardiovascular disease, dementia, depression, and anxiety. Feeling lonely even at work. When we talk about people often feel lonely at work, chronically feeling like you do not belong or you're trying to fit in, that work loneliness reduces task performance, limits creativity, impairs other aspects of executive functioning, such as reasoning and decision making. Part of this video, I was going to talk about different studies that say about these groups are most at risk of loneliness. There are so many groups. I end up like thinking, I'm not even going to include that because what group is not? It talked about young men and young women. It talked about older men and older women. It talked about new moms and new dads. And it talked about seniors. And it talked about women who were leaders in their organizations. It talked about, and studies have been done on all of these different groups of people. And so I just, in my non scientific way, just summed that up to think, okay, there's not one of us that's not affected by loneliness. So we need to pay attention to this. In a world that moves very fast, it is easy to get caught up in it and forget what truly matters and forget who we truly are. But after 57 years of living and learning and making lots of mistakes, and you can see all about the mistakes and my failures in video number 2 in this little series about changing my relationship with failure, I've come to realize that connection is everything. I know, sounds a little woo-woo. It's not. I'm getting down to the practical nitty-gritty of how to make this work and how to make us healthier. You can see behind me here that I have Brene Brown's book, Atlas of the Heart. Oh my goodness, it is so good. There's a whole section on loneliness and connection and trying to fit in and our sense of belonging. It is so good. I'm going to put all of the links. I'll be making reference to different books and podcasts and resources as we go through this. All of those links will be in the description below if you want to check those out. Now, just to be clear, when we talk about relationships and connections, people automatically assume we're talking about romantic relationships and romantic partners. That's not what I'm referring to. I am talking about all types of connections and relationships. Connection is the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, when they can give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from a relationship. Now, don't worry, I'm also not going to be telling you, oh, you have to get out there and meet a whole bunch of new people. You don't have to at all. You can if you like and make some meaningful connections that way. But fellow introverts, I have you covered. No, this is not about getting out and meeting a whole bunch of new people. Oh, that idea just like makes me feel anxious just thinking about it. Research shows it is not the quantity of relationships, it is absolutely the quality of connections and relationships. You only need one meaningful relationship in your life to receive some of the health benefits that are associated with this. Like many of you, I have had many periods of loneliness in my life. And it doesn't mean that you're not surrounded by people. It's no surprise to hear that you can be in a room full of people and still feel very lonely, feeling that you don't belong there. Not that I suffered with it for great periods of time in my life, but certainly for months at a time, had very significant feelings of loneliness. Maybe by the end of this video, I'll figure out how to say the word loneliness. It's a tough one. It's a tongue twister. One of the stories that always comes to my mind when I think about a very lonely time in my life is at the beginning of my career. I had finished university a few months before and secured a job that I was very excited about, but it meant moving to a town where I knew no one. No one. Leaving a group of friends that I felt pretty comfortable with and secure, going to a new town to start a job that would be brand new. It was kind of the start of my professional career. And then shortly after I moved here, my grandfather died unexpectedly, and he was somebody who I loved dearly and fully, and so really grieved the loss of him. So moved at the beginning of January. He died towards the end of January. Then came back to this town, feeling very alone after that. And then I don't know. I think 2 months after that, maybe a month after that, the place I was renting burnt, and I lost everything I owned. I was starting to feel this big black cloud over me. And then I got to the point that I didn't want to meet people. I didn't want to create meaningful connections. I really just wanted to get out of that space where I was, this town where I was living, this job that I knew nothing about and was overwhelmed and thinking that, oh my God, did they hired me, and do I even know what I'm doing? I can remember thinking, being upset about it and just being so frustrated, and then thinking, you know what? I'm done. I don't know anybody here. I have no friends. I don't do anything. I might as well just get in my car and drive away. I don't even have anything to pack because everything I own burnt. So that was 35 years ago, more than 35 years ago. I share that story because even though it was so long ago, I remember vividly how it felt. And it's a terrible feeling. And I also remember looking back on it. What was the thing that nudged me forward with it? And I think there were two things. There was one connection I made at work with somebody who really supported me, and I felt that I could connect with them. Only one. That's all it was. And that's all it took. The other thing that I think happened is that I forced myself, I told myself, okay, I only need to stay here for a year, at least try to be active. And so I joined the local YMCA. And that was the start of creating many new connections that have lasted a lifetime. We will all have periods of loneliness throughout our life, but the important part is to not let it become chronic. And if it is becoming chronic, either to get some help that you may need. It is exhausting to try and be someone you're not, or trying to do things that don't fully align with who you think you are. And that's why one of the first things is about connecting with yourself. How we connect with ourselves influences how we connect with other people. So sometimes you just need to take a little bit of time and pull yourself away and go inwards. Being alone is not the same as being lonely. Taking some alone time to work on yourself and build yourself, that is some of the most satisfying work because you're connecting inwards. That is about connection as well. Now, I'm sure this will be no surprise to anyone, but I think it is still worth mentioning because, again, as I said earlier, sometimes we just get so wrapped up in trying to get through the craziness of the world that we kind of forget what it's all about. And this Harvard study, this long study that's followed people since 1938, they do end of life interviews with their participants and ask people about what are they most proud of in their life looking back on it. What they answered is that some of the things that they're most proud of are their relationships. It's not about their money or their awards or their status that they reached in society. It is about the relationships. They say, "I was a good mentor. I was a good friend. I was a good partner. I raised healthy kids." It's all about relationships. We need to pay attention to this now more than ever. So, what are some ways to start building and strengthening some of our connections to make them more meaningful? I have a couple of little suggestions to give you, but remember, I'm not the expert. Check the links below for the information from the actual experts on this. But this is what I've learned through my years of living that I want to share with you. Number one, that we've already said, is it starts with you. Remember, how we connect with ourselves influences how we connect with everyone else. Start to work on yourself, really get to know what matters to you, what your values are, and what your beliefs are. Okay, this next one is probably the one that I'm most concerned about, worried about, but also one of the ones that I think is most important. And that is put the effort into learning how to connect and communicate across our differences. Phew, yes, I know. People say surround yourself with people with similar beliefs and values to build those meaningful connections. Yes, that's absolutely important. But I think there's a fine balance there. I don't entirely know what the balance should be, but I do think there's a balance there to say that yes, surround yourself with people who have the same beliefs, but not to dismiss people who may have different beliefs. We are multidimensional beings, and the world that we're living in right now seems so divided. If a person expresses an opinion about a political belief, a religious belief, that's how we identify them. And so I think we've forgotten that there are all kinds of dimensions to people just because we have different beliefs. And sometimes I know these run deep. I am struggling with some of these things myself. So, one of the things that I've done to help remind myself that people are more than their opinions or beliefs on one particular issue is it comes down to social media. I've not done this successfully in all cases, but I have done it successfully in a couple of cases. And so one of the things is to unfollow people or to snooze them for a little bit. Not because I want to cut them out of my life or because I'm so frustrated with them that I don't want to maintain any type of connection at all. Not for that reason. I've unfollowed them or snoozed them to remind myself that they are more than just their opinion on this one issue. There's all kinds of great things about them that become easy to forget when you're just constantly seeing this one belief or one value that they continue to post. This channel is about lead your living, lead your wellness, your work and your leisure, and I constantly remind people in my videos that you're in charge. No one else is coming. You need to lead your own living. And so it's not about getting mad at somebody for posting those things. It's about, okay, what control do I have over that situation? And I actually have control over what posts I see. These things can take a lot of effort. It's up to you to decide which relationships or connections are worth the effort and which are not. I think it's important for us to teach the next generation how to communicate and connect across our differences. These kids that are coming up now are our future. And remember, they don't listen to really what we say. They listen to what we do. They see how we're reacting. They see how we are responding when we disagree with somebody. So we can't ever forget that the little folks are always listening and learning from us. Now, I know we're all human. We all mess up. I would hate to be putting out a list of all the parenting mistakes I've made over the years, but all we can do is become aware. And as they say, when you know better, you do better. So this is a really big one. I feel like I'm saying that for every reminder that giving, but this is a really, really significant one. If you are in a season of your life right now where things are feeling lonely and you feel like you don't have significant or meaningful connections and you're feeling lonely, and remember, loneliness can look a whole lot of different ways. It may not be saying I feel lonely. You may not even recognize it like that. It can be, I feel like I'm carrying the weight of the world. I feel like nobody knows what I'm going through. I feel like I have it all and nobody else is doing anything else. I just feel so overwhelmed. I don't want to do anything. I don't have the energy to meet people. All of those comments and those feelings, that kind of leads into loneliness. It's all part of the same pot. And so, if you are in a season of your life that is how you're feeling, please remember that loneliness or feeling lonely is not a reflection of your worth. Let me say it again because this is so important. And when we're in that lonely feeling period, it can be very easily to do all that negative self-talk and say, "I'm not worth it, and I'm not worth taking the effort or making the connection. Nobody even cares about me, and why would they? I can't do that." No, get yourself out of that tailspin or that brain spin and remind yourself, feeling lonely, we all go through that, and it has different depths, for different people and different frequencies for different people. But regardless, feeling lonely is not a reflection of your worthiness. Here's one little thing you can do. And I know sometimes this takes a lot of effort, but one tiny little thing you can do is be the person who actually reaches out to somebody else. What if you stop being the person that is waiting for others to reach out and connect with you and start this process? Take the first step. Just text somebody and say, "Thinking of you, why don't we get together?" And I know this is easier said than done sometimes, but there are little ways you can do it. People are waiting to hear from you. You are so worthy and they want to hear from you. And sometimes other people just are in the same boat and don't have the energy to take the step. Take the first step. Be the person to do that first. It feels good. This next reminder, I'm just going to take a quote directly from Brene Brown because I don't think it can be said in any better way. Again, that's why she is who she is. So remember that connection doesn't have to be grand, it just has to be real. What about the coworker who always makes you laugh? The barista who knows your order and asks about your day? What about the woman in your yoga class who always gives you a warm smile? It can be that simple. It doesn't have to be grand. Do not underestimate the ripple effect of these little gestures of connection. John Maxwell has a quote: "There are many paths to joy." I think the same can be applied to connections, that there are many paths to finding meaningful connections. Explore, find your path. Thank you for joining me in this little three-part series. And even if this is the only video of the three-part series that you've seen, thank you for that. I appreciate you viewing and thinking about it. If it resonated with you at all, leave some comments below or give me a like. And if you want to see part one and or part two, you can check them out here. This is probably a good time for me to remind you that I am not a health expert. As always, please discuss any new health initiative with your primary care provider.